The sounds of battle were a terrifying symphony. The shriek of the Drakkar, a sound like rock grinding against glacial ice, was punctuated by the shouts of men and the sharp, percussive ring of swords meeting armored hides. Each clang, each roar that echoed through the stone walls of my chamber was a fresh wave of terror. This was not a scripted background event with cinematic camera angles. This was chaos. This was death. My player knowledge was useless. I knew the Drakkar's weak spot was a soft patch of flesh under their jaw, but that information was meaningless when I was armed with nothing but a trembling body and a mind in freefall. There was no health bar, no respawn point. There was only the thin wooden door between me and a very real, very violent end. I scrambled off the bed, backing away from the door until my shoulders hit the cold stone of the far wall. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a wild drumbeat in the sudden, awful silence that fell just outside my corridor. It was the silence of anticipation, the breath held before the strike. Then came the splintering crash. The chamber door exploded inward, ripped from its iron hinges. A Drakkar filled the frame, a monstrous nightmare of gray scales, curving tusks, and eyes that burned with a malevolent, hungry light. It was bigger than the game models, its stench, a foul mix of wet fur and carrion, a sensory detail no haptic suit could ever replicate. It lowered its head, saliva dripping from its jaws, and fixed its hateful gaze on me. A scream tore from my throat, raw and hopeless. This was it, game over, for real. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable, but the killing blow never came. Instead, I heard a familiar voice roar, "Get away from her." My eyes flew open. Kalen was there, a whirlwind of black leather and flashing steel. His greatsword, which I'd always seen as a beautifully rendered asset, was now a brutally efficient extension of his arm. He moved with a speed and ferocity that was terrifying and magnificent, his blade carving a bloody arc across the beast's flank. The Drakkar bellowed in pain and rage, swiping at him with a clawed foreleg. Kalen dodged, but at the same moment a flicker of arcane light erupted from the doorway. An ethereal chain of pure energy snaked out, wrapping around the Drakkar's leg, pulling it off balance. Rhys stood there, his hands alight with green power, his face pale with strain but set with grim determination. They fought together with a seamless, practiced grace, a dance of steel and magic. Kalen was the anchor, the raw power, forcing the beast's attention, while Rhys was the current, exploiting openings, binding and striking with pinpoint precision. It was violent, visceral, and breathtaking. Blood, black and thick, spattered across the stone floor. The Drakkar thrashed, its death throes shaking the very foundations of the room, before Kalen silenced it with a final, definitive thrust of his sword through its throat. The beast collapsed, its massive body shuddering into stillness. For a moment there was only the sound of heavy, ragged breathing. Kalen stood over the corpse, his chest heaving, his sword dripping. Rhys leaned against the ruined doorframe, the light in his hands fading, leaving him looking tired and frighteningly mortal. Then their heads snapped toward me in unison. They saw me, huddled against the wall, shaking uncontrollably, my face streaked with tears. The feral light of battle faded from their eyes, replaced by the same raw concern I'd seen before. They came to me, their boots squelching in the Drakkar's blood. Kalen dropped his sword with a clang and knelt, his hands framing my face, his thumbs wiping away my tears. Rhys stood behind him, a protective, worried presence. "Are you hurt?" Kalen's voice was hoarse. I could only shake my head, unable to form words. The last vestiges of my denial had been slain along with the monster. The adrenaline, the sheer, primal terror of near death had burned away the comforting lie. This was real. They were real. Their pain, their fear, their bravery, it was all real. And I had treated it like a game. The weight of that realization was crushing. I looked at Kalen's face, at the small cut on his cheekbone, at the genuine, desperate fear for my safety in his eyes. I looked at Rhys, who had wielded real, dangerous magic to protect me. Kalen's question from the solar echoed in my mind, no longer an accusation but a simple, heartbreaking query. "Is this just a game to you?" "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. I met his gaze, letting him see the self-loathing, the regret, the shame that was flooding me. "No, it's not a game." My voice grew stronger, fueled by a desperate need for them to understand. It was, before, I did not understand. I thought none of this was real, but I was wrong. I was so wrong. I am sorry. The confession hung in the air, simple and devastating. I did not try to explain the impossible truth of my world, of VR and simulations. I just gave them the only truth that mattered now. Kalen's expression softened, the hard lines of his face easing. The anger he had felt before was gone, washed away by the battle and my stark, terrified honesty. He did not understand what I meant, not fully, but he understood the sentiment. He understood my apology. Reese stepped forward, his mossy green eyes searching mine. "Whatever world you came from, Lyra," he said softly, "it is not this one. That much has become clear." Kalen pulled me to my feet, his hands gentle on my arms. He did not release me, keeping me steady. "Your past does not matter right now," he rumbled, his voice a low, protective vow. "What matters is that you are here, and we will keep you safe." I looked from Kalen's fierce, steady gaze to Reese's intelligent, compassionate one. They stood together, flanking me, a united front against the monsters outside and the terrifying uncertainty of my new reality. The game I had been playing was over. My old life was gone. But as Kalen's hand found mine, his fingers lacing through my own, and Reese placed a steadying hand on my shoulder, I realized I was not playing for points or achievements anymore. I was fighting for survival, and for the first time in this beautiful, brutal world, I was not alone. This was our reality now, and we would face it together.